A warm welcome here in this Limburgian White House, the governmental building here in Maastricht, where the treaty has signed. Also, the people from Spain are sitting over where? Who is coming from Spain? Online. From Sweden? From Sweden and from Germany. Belgium. I saw some familiar faces and also unfamiliar faces. My name is Geert Gabriels, Regional Minister for Biodiversity, Nature, and I'm trying to make the world a better place. I'm also wishing you a very warm welcome here. Maybe it's possible, when you have a break, it's possible to see the exposition on the second floor, or is it the first floor? I do not know. It's everywhere in the world, it's different, first floor, second floor. It's on the second floor, and there's an exposition of the signing of the Treaty of Maastricht. So for the people who have never been here, maybe interesting for maybe 10 minutes if you have time to visit it. I wish you all an inspiring day. Before I was a regional minister, I was working in the city of Weert. Maybe you visited this today. Lozerheide I saw on the schedule, on the program. It's a really interesting place, and nobody not so many tourists walking over there. And sometimes in the morning, very early, I go there, and I want to see lots of wildlife, but sometimes there are lots of dogs and people walking with dogs. There is no wildlife, and sometimes it's swarming with all kinds of wildlife. So you will visit it to this at 3 o'clock, 4 o'clock. But I wish you an inspiring day. And also I want to announce Janine. She will announce herself.
It's very good that you could be here, even though you're ill.
Yes.
You told us. We're very delighted that you could take the time.
It's important.
Thank you. Yeah, that's very good. We're very happy to have you here. I will ask you some questions later on, but I would like to introduce myself so that people know who I am. I was born and raised in this beautiful province. That's always a great pleasure to be back, and especially in Maastricht, of course, our capital city. My name is Janine Kaalders, and I was involved, I'm here on behalf of Rewilding Europe, and with Wouter Helmer, and Lei Heikers, that I saw, that I don't see.
Standing over there.
Over there. Standing, of course. And Rutger van Raalte, we were involved in the very beginning of this project, and I'm very delighted to be here at the end event of the project as well. My role is to guide you through the program and to make sure that we're all in time for lunch and for the bus that somebody else will take over by then. But one of the first things I would like to ask you in this role is, did you all switch off your phones, please? And the other one is that we really need to be in time for the bus that leaves at 1 o'clock sharp. So these are my household announcements. Is that good English? I don't know. Okay, also a very special welcome to all the people that we've been working with the German partners, with the Swedish partners, and with the Spanish partners online. I think, maybe raise hands who are from, it's mainly government organizations and nature organizations. Who's from a government organization in the room? Okay, about half. And people from nature organizations? Over half, and others that have a different role. Okay, 2 consultants in the back. Okay. And one man over here, yeah, of course, from the Secretariat, Joint Secretariat. We're very happy to have you here as well, and you will tell us something about the program at the end of the afternoon session. Okay, we have a concise program with some very nice speakers, but you are the first person on the program. I'll put away my pen.
Sit down or sit down?
What you prefer? Maybe if you're not feeling too well, you want to sit down. But
maybe it's best.
Yes. So you've been a deputy for a year. So yes. You took over this project from your predecessor. What do you think about the project? How did you perceive this whole idea? Because it's about nature as the basis for economic development. Actually, the idea behind the project is if you want more economy, you have to invest in nature.
Yes, yes. To be honest, in the beginning, I was a bit skeptical, not about a project because all people here have an intrinsic heart for restoring nature and populations and biodiversity, but because in the Netherlands, and maybe in Sweden or in Spain or in other countries it's a bit different, but here is all about economics and economy. If it's wildlife economy, then it's okay. But if it's wildlife economy, then it has a different intrinsic value for me. But I already know it's a very positive project, of course, to restore nature. But for me, not everything is about economy, because we are talking about economy already each day, each moment of the day, because it's the first, most important thing that we are talking about. So for me, it's really interesting how this economy can help the nature, and of course we can use and develop nature for a better economy. I was in the beginning a bit skeptical, but of course there are lots of regions in the world where you need the economy to restore nature. So also very, very positive, and especially the examples which I already saw.
Okay, yes, I wanted to ask you about the examples also in relation to you're working on a new policy document for the province. And there are a lot of interesting examples that have been partly developed and also that have already been there in these other regions, and also here, of course. Is there anything from this project or from the philosophy of this project that will land in the new policy for nature?
Yes, in the Netherlands, we are investing lots of money to restore nature in Nature 2000 areas. But outside of these areas, we sometimes forget to invest in healthy systems, so cycles, hydrological cycle, nitrogen cycle, carbon cycle. So it's of course very important not only to invest in the areas which are being protected, but to protect the whole of the system, of the nature system. And that's why in this policy we tend to have more energy in inclusiveness. So we have the economic department, cultural department, nature department, but nature has to be all over it. So it has to be inclusive, and we often we do this, but it's also sometimes greenwashing. So then we have economic development, and then we compensate this nature, but it's never the values which the values they do not come back. So it's very important to be upfront in each project, to have nature and biodiversity, and to think about how to restore environment in each project, also economic development projects or new highways or whatever. So this is, I think, a main point of this new policy, and I hope everybody is okay with that.
And I just read yesterday in the paper that in Amsterdam, the capital of the Netherlands, there's about 2/3 of all the plants that live in the Netherlands also are present in Amsterdam. So that's what you were mentioning, I think. Can you give an example of the way this more interaction between these policy fields is going to land in the nature policy?
No, it's all also about the policy makers. So if there is a new project, people upfront have to know the impact of the project in nature. So you have to know which population is being harmed. What do you have to do to restore this population, or to do other things where this population can live. I do not have very concrete examples, but we all have to think nature inclusive. So, and in this province, it was not. I'm only here for a year, but I have lots of examples where you can point out that in this province it's necessary to think nature inclusive. We have very good examples in the Meuse Valley, but we also have examples in other parts where we do not take the nature into account. So it is in all the departments people have to think about nature, but also in concrete projects. Yep. And not only to put doesn't have to be greenwashing. We have to measure the populations. We have to measure is the nature doing well, because you cannot see always. You cannot always see.
Yes, these figures is something which I think is very interesting, also in relation to the example of the Meuse Valley that you just mentioned. We are going to visit the Meuse Valley this afternoon. It's one of the examples in a report that I will offer you in a few minutes. What was interesting is that it's been calculated that there's so much employment. It's interesting in relation to this project. There's so much employment involved in this nature restoration project in the Meuse Valley. Do you think these kinds of figures about employment, economic impact, that they are relevant to know and
yes.
to measure?
Yes, of course, because then it's about awareness. Mm-hmm. So if there is employment and people are aware of restoring nature or helping or protecting nature is also an economic factor, then of course it's awareness is very important. Yeah. Yeah. Also not about the employment, but also about the population. And lots of people do not know the nitrogen cycle. Lots of people do not know. Lots of politicians, lots of people do not know that there was draft. There was not raining for months in Europe. Lots of people do not know because water is coming from from the tap. Yeah, from the tap anyway. Yeah. So lots of people do not understand how the cycle, the hydrological cycle, is working. So awareness in ecological knowledge, but also in employment knowledge, is of course really important. But also on secondary schools in our country. Everybody is learning math and the languages, but there is no sustainability course or curriculum about sustainability or about geography. I'm a geography teacher, and it was 1 hour in secondary school a week. And then there's a shortage of knowledge of the nitrogen problem, about ecological problems. Oh, nature will always restore. Maybe not. So it's not about being depressed after this day. It's about inspiring. But sometimes, my intrinsic value about economy is less than restoring the happiness of seeing nature.
Before you love it, you have to know about it. This project is
win-win. So restoring nature and to have economic advantages of it.
Okay. You want people to have nature in their hearts, and therefore you have to know what it's about.
Yes, and not because of the earning of money. Yes, it's also important, but it's because of being happy of seeing birds, or being happy studying the behavior of some animals. It's aesthetic important, but it's also, of course, important for the economy. But for me, it's second. First is these animals exist like us. Yeah. And of course, you can earn money with them, and it's good if it's protecting the populations. I think it's the best. Okay. Yeah.
So, do you have a last message for the people here and the people in?
No, I think you are doing really well to combining these two factors, and to be in people's heads, to think you have to restore nature. So it's also better for the area. I saw this in the city of Weert. It's a really great, it's a great project. So to enjoy to this day, to be inspired by each other, and also to continue this great work of restoring nature and building an eco-economy. So this is, I think, the best message to give. And thank you that you are working in this subject. to help nature.
I announced that I wanted to offer you the first example. Yeah, the first one, the first printed version of this report with some examples of enterprises that are actually restoring nature, that are doing good for nature.
Yes,
so
these examples I saw. It's great.
Yes.
Yeah.
And the Meuse Valley is, of course, one of the examples in.
Thank you very much.
Yes, thank you. Thank you very much. There's a copy for all of you in the break or when you go home. So take one if you're interested. Okay, I would now like to announce our second speaker, Wouter Helmer. Wouter is one of the founders of Rewilding Europe. For me, Wouter is one of the most inspiring people actually working in nature in the Netherlands. He's also a very modest person, so you'll probably tell me that I shouldn't say these kinds of things. But well, nevertheless, I wanted to have it said. So Wouter, the floor is yours.
Thank you so much for inviting me and to give you a short introduction on rewilding, which is of course all about reconnecting modern society with wilder nature. That's what my story is about. And I very much like to start with this picture. Maybe the lights can be a little bit less. Oh, sorry, not possible. Anyway, so I'd like to start with this picture, which is a perfect example of sometimes very unconventional partnerships we found in the last 35 years. This is just 15 kilometers from the city of Amsterdam, where a drink water company decided to rewild their areas and by doing that protect their drink water sources for the Delta Metropole. So bison, free roaming bison in a pretty large area close to our capital. But for me, it all started 35 years ago with a report, a plan, OIVAR, or Plan Stork as it's called in English, where for the first time actually in the Netherlands, people connect ecology with economy, in this case with flood protection. And it was taken over by WWF with their Living Rivers report and pro-campaign. And we as Arc Nature at that time started some small-scale projects on the ground to show people how it looks like to have nature being an ally in solving our flood problems. And we found a very important partner at that time, the clay mining industry, that had really problems to get permits because they were used to just digging holes in the land, filling it up with garbage, covering it with soil again, and selling it as farmland. More and more opposition from the society against that practice. And we say, if you do it a different way, we can help you getting new permits, but then you should concentrate your work in the floodplain. So not everywhere, but focus on the floodplains where actually clay is a renewable source. Even, we have 1.5 times more clay sedimentation a year than we need for our bricks in the Netherlands. So imagine. So that's actually what happened. And at the same time, clay mining became a kind of engine to transform agricultural land into nature. And and by lowering the floodplains, actually create an alternative for what we have done till that time. 800 years long, we have make bigger dikes, higher dikes, creating actually more risk behind the dikes if something goes wrong. But from that time, we are lowering our floodplains to give more space to the river and to nature and to people. Anyway, that was all quite small scale, but then we had 1993, 1995, serious floods. We had to evacuate 200,000 people in the Netherlands, billions of damage in the area, and suddenly what we started very small became actually a national policy, Room for Rivers. And I think the most spectacular project we will visit today, actually that's the border the Meuse Valley, where we succeeded to convince the gravel industry to stop again with deep mining pits, but do it in a superficial way and create from a 60 meters wide canal, almost 1 kilometer broad at some places, braiding river, which is we will visit this afternoon, and you will see how it looks like with islands and rapids, and it's an amazing place for wildlife, but also for tourists. That is maybe one of the success factors behind rewilding, that we opened all these areas for public. People are free to walk and bike where they want. And we support that as well by setting up education programs. I think altogether we went with 150,000 children out in the field and their parents. We helped facilitate some things with, for example, wheelchairs for disabled people. We helped startups with bed and breakfast, tea gardens, ferries even. And that altogether contributes, for example, in the Gelderse Poort, the top of the Dutch Delta, when I was a young boy there, I'm coming from that area, we had probably 50,000 visitors per year. Now it's up to 1.5 million people going there every year, adding about 25 million euros to the local economy, more than 300 new jobs. And something we found out later, adding value to the real estate in the area. So even brokers in this area are advertising, do you want to have a house with a beautiful view on free roaming horses? Then buy this house. And actually it's 5 to 10% more than in similar areas without rewilding, which, for example, in this community of the community of Bergendal contributes about €500,000 per year via rewilding for real estate tax income. Just some new things we found out. But maybe more important, the original reason to do this, create room for rivers, appeared to be actually a successful story. Last year we had the highest flood ever in the Meuse system, and compared to 1993, there was no damage at this time in the border Meuse, compared, for example, to areas more upstream where we had severe problems. In Germany, actually a lot of deadly victims in the same flood. But along the border Meuse, actually everything went well. So I think that shows that rewilding can really be a solution for modern socio-economic issues. Just a short intermezzo about the natural processes that we stimulate here is, of course, abiotic processes for these areas. And in the river area, it's flooding, but also erosion, sedimentation. But we also reintroduced some key natural processes, biotic processes, by bringing back horses from Poland in this case, beavers from Germany, from the Elbe region, and cattle from Scotland to create the new landscapes of the future. And the result is really an explosion of life. So the picture you see here is 10 years after it was just a cornfield. And we have, so the grazing, the browsing of the animals, the trampling of the soil, their shit, their carcasses, the bull pits, that all contributes to an amazing diversity of life that actually makes these areas biodiversity hotspots in Europe. But there's also a story behind that. On the top, you see actually the European landscape as it looks now. Almost, if you fly over Europe, you see that's the landscape. All hard borders between heathlands, forests, meadows, arable land. Even in nature areas, you see this compartmentation of land. Okay, but if you then understand that climate change goes with 4 kilometers a year to the north at the moment in Europe. Doesn't sound much, maybe 4 kilometers a year, yeah? You can walk it in an hour. But it's 11 meters a day, which means that actually insects, lizards, plant species have to keep up pace with this climate change with 11 meters a day. Every 10 days they meet this hard border between heathland or forest and the pictures below, these are the natural grazed landscapes. Actually they create mosaics of landscapes where both species of open grasslands as shrublands as forests can find their way to the north, actually. So these rewilding landscapes are also much more resilient to climate change than our current landscapes. Anyway, just starting small projects, bringing in some horses, but these animals, they reproduce like hell. So you have 25% a year on annual reproduction. Well, the first 10 years we succeeded to bring these animals to new rewilding areas, ending up as, I think, as Art Nature at the moment, one of the biggest farmers of the Netherlands with a few thousand animals. But then suddenly there was growing interest from outside the Netherlands. So we got requests from Belgium, from France, from Germany, from UK, from Latvia, from Croatia, from Bulgaria. Come on, what's going on? Everybody wants to have herds that were well adapted to natural circumstances. And then actually for the first time we realized, that's about 20 years ago, that something is really going on in Europe. A complete change of the use of our continent. Young people, I've seen them in Croatia, Bulgaria, coming out of the school bus with their iPhones, walking to their parents with 10 heads of cattle or a herd of sheep, and they say, that's not my future. You can say they are rather without work in the city than poor on the countryside. That's reality at the moment. So young people move to the city, and it is on a scale of about 1 million hectares per year happening. And with the people, also their livestock moves out of this rural landscape. And what you see is that actually beautiful old cultural landscape, mosaic landscape, they grow through with shrubs, with forests. Of course, there's also nature, but it's only part of the story if you don't have herbivory in your system. And it also makes landscape very vulnerable for large wildfires, by the way. Anyway, so it's an socio-economic problem, but it's also an ecological problem. What you see on the best soils, intensification of farmland, and on the more remote areas, just closed forest scrublands, and everything in between. And we think that's about 50% of European biodiversity is at risk at the moment. So if we don't do something with these, in between those forest and intensive farmland, we will lose a lot of species on our continent. And that's, I think, the main reason that people want to be involved in rewilding, because the traditional approach, you already mentioned Natura 2000, Geert, that's just by, it's a conservation approach that comes hand in hand with a lot of management, mowing, planting trees, whatever. It costs a lot of money. And actually it costs 5 times more money than we have at the moment in Europe, or maybe even 10 times more. Okay, should we then ask our society to pay 5 or 10 times more money for conservation? I can tell you that will not happen. We have more challenges on our continent than conservation. So the big question is, can we save actually our biodiversity with less management costs and higher outcomes, hopefully even more even economic incentives, and with a higher quality of nature? And actually that question was the central question why we started Rewilding Europe in 2011, and started a complete new movement in Europe to, on top of what's going on in conservation, to build up rural economies that actually contribute to nature. And that's what happened since then. The message is quite simple: make Europe a wilder place. 3 main messages: just let natural processes shape our landscape more and more. Social embedding of the project, so involve local communities in what we are doing. And very important, because that's why they will be involved, create jobs on the floor, on the ground, and make people see that nature is also in their interest. Well, nice story is fine, but in the end you need examples on the ground. So we were, and we were also aware that we should not build a top-down approach. So we decided to organize it bottom-up, and that's done actually via WWF in 2009 at the first European Wilderness Conference. We present our story. We said, oh, this is going on in Europe, land abandonment on a large scale. Well, there are several solutions for that. But if you think in your region that rewilding could be part of the solution, could be part of your new rural economy, nominate your area for Rewilding Europe. Let's see what's happening. And then we got 34 nominations from all over Europe. To be honest, there were also people who said, yeah, just send us the money and shut up. So those projects we didn't take on board. But those 10 now on the map, those are our showcases where we show that how it could work, reconnecting wilder nature with modern society. And taking our baggage from the Netherlands with us, we also helped people to think about new economies. And I just go through some of them to show you how it could work in practice. Well, one of the most important, I think this is what we had a project on request of the European Commission, Grace Life. I think the main reason to offer us that project was because of the wildfire problem in the southern Europe mainly. So with land abandonment, as I already said, you create very vulnerable landscapes for wildfires because you have closed shrublands, closed forest, and bringing back large herbivores really create actually natural fire breaks. They remove the flammable vegetation under the trees. They create mosaic structures which are much easier to protect against wildfires than closed shrublands, closed forests. And actually the solution of that was already scratched on the rock walls of Portugal 15 to 25,000 years ago. So on the top right, you see some rock engravings from the Coa Valley, the largest rock engravings we have in the world, actually. Thousands and thousands of pictures, and it's all about herbivores. Tauros, wild horse, wild deer, wild ass, kulans. So actually, at that time already, people found these animals actually as the most dominant species in the landscape, and we bring them now back to the same areas where they once belonged. And by actually consuming the flammable vegetation and via their shit actually bring it into the soil, these herbivores also create big carbon storage in the soil. And that's not only done by, at the same time, for example, we have a picture of our project in Scandinavia. Rewetting of peatlands also contributes to carbon storage. But also spontaneous recovery of shrubland, of trees, contributes to carbon storage. And that's just happening in all our rewilding areas. Also along the border mews here in Kempenbroek, where we will visit, this afternoon. Actually, conservation organizations are at the moment storing for tens of millions of euros carbon in their areas, which is not paid for. So that awareness raised in our work. So we are now setting up companies to actually monetize what we are doing and create an extra source of income for rewilding organizations to, as I said, monetize what they are already doing and get money to increase their impact in the landscapes. Well, and like in the Netherlands, nature tourism is an important rural economy. You can imagine with landscapes again filled with bison, with wolves, with bears. You attract people from all over Europe, from the cities, to visit these areas. To support this, we created Rewilding Europe Capital, a loan facility that helps startups to create bed and breakfasts, guiding tours, photo hides, whatever. And with Rewilding Europe Travel, we have an organization that promotes these areas as destinations, so that people from all over Europe know how to find these places, go there, spending money on overnight stays, food, drinks, and contribute to local economies. Well, then some pictures from the Oder Delta, but also the Danube Delta. There are some deltas in our program with, so we could say, failed polders. So re-wetting those polders, and especially the Danube Delta, in communist times, they poldered tens of thousands of hectares. But there's so little rainfall there that after 10, 20 years, you will be left with silty soils, so, which are completely not useful anymore for agriculture. So re-wetting these areas, bringing back fish in the ecosystem, and most of the original communities of this area are fishing communities. But not only for the local people, also for fish-eating birds, mammals. We create a complete new landscape that's more, also economically, more viable than the polder landscape that was before. More upstream, rewilding could contribute to water buffering, like, for example, in Kempenbroek, the area we will visit this afternoon, where upstream of Den Bosch and Eindhoven, we create a large wetland that stores water at the source. It would also be a solution along in the hills here, upstream of the Meuse Valley. And beavers can do the job. 2 minutes? Sorry, whoop, okay, there we go. One of the most effective ways of rewilding is actually removing old, obsolete dams. So for this reason, we created Dam Removal Europe with a lot of NGOs, removing thousands of dams from, we have 1.2 million obsolete dams in European rivers, so there's a lot of work to do. And creating new economies around a living river again. Catch and release fishing compared to extractive fishing is a much better economy, better for us, better for the fish. There are areas where we made a transition from hunting to wildlife watching. So Rewilding Europe bought 23,000 hectares of hunting concessions, for example, in Croatia, and created a no hunting zone By doing that, boost wildlife numbers, build photo heights, and I can tell you it makes a lot of difference for an animal if it's shot with a gun or by a camera. And photographers bring in much more money than hunters. And at the same time, the hunters are still satisfied because we have these no-take zones. Wildlife populations explode, and with the spillover, they still have animals to hunt around these safe areas. Again, another example, in Bulgaria, again with hunters, we brought in large numbers of red deer, fallow deer. By doing that, actually restoring the mosaic landscapes, bringing in also prey for the large predators, distracting wolves by doing that from the herds of shepherds. So shepherds glad that the wolves are now focused on deer instead of their sheep. So again, and creating a nice destination for tourism. And then, maybe it's quite new, we found out, actually in this province of Limburg, that with a group of doctors in the northern part, that nature in the vicinity of villages and cities really contributes to the health situation of the population. And it's only a few percent of the budget of the insurance companies, but for example, in the northern region of Limburg, it's about 135,000 people. The doctors, by giving more time to their clients, bringing them to a nature environment, save 3% of the annual budget of the insurance companies, which is only in this area 25 million euros per year. And we can reuse that. We should press the insurance companies to invest that in nature. Well, a lot of experiences. We shared it now in our European rewilding network, of which the 2 areas we will visit this afternoon are part of. And it's all about, as I said, reconnecting wild nature with modern society, where you could say after some 100,000 years of being hunters-gatherers in a natural environment, we completely unraveled the system of our nature into farmland and forest and separate all these functions of nature. And what we aim with our wildlife economies, with rewilding, to reconnect modern society with wild nature in a way that both benefit from each other. That's it. Thank you.
We have 20 seconds. No, we have. Let's take 2 minutes for questions.
Okay.
Maybe one from here and one from the people that are watching us online. Is there anybody that wants to ask a question or that has a? If not, I will.
Saves time.
I will.
Oh, sorry. Okay.
You've been involved in nature conservation for
35 years,
life.
more or less, yeah.
Yeah. So I'm interested to hear how you think it's changed in the past 30 years, and also how this idea of wildlife economy, the deputy also talked about it. Is that really necessary? Is it not?
Yeah.
You've already mentioned it a bit, but
So
can you say a bit more?
Yeah. So the traditional approach just falls short. So we can only keep what's there, and in the best case we keep it like it is. But in most cases we just go back and getting it worse. And actually we know how to solve it. The story is also we know actually how we should do it, and also with an economical perspective. So luckily we see everywhere now popping up initiatives that adapt this story. Just coming back from the US, where they're setting up now Rewilding America, more or less, following our vision and ideas. And it's just, I think, a matter of time, because otherwise, climate change, biodiversity problems will, will force us to act.
How difficult is it? Because you were talking about the relation with health. Everybody knows, and there's so many research done that it is good for health.
Yeah. But the problem is long, because I tried this already 20 years ago to make the connection with healthcare, and they just pushed it away. The health organization said it's not our business to take care of nature, but they are building their hospitals and sanatoria in nature because it helps. And the problem is we didn't have a business case. And now in northern part of Limburg, we have a business case. There are 25 doctors that show that with more attention to their clients and using their natural environment for recreation and relaxation, they could reduce a lot of the
25 million.
25 million a year. So and then again we said, okay, insurance company, you can keep 2%, 60 million, but reinvest in nature. And they say, well, it's not our business. And then we went to the authority that takes care of the insurance companies and said, well, 1/3 of your money is indeed coming from premiums, but 2/3 is just tax money. And we, as an authority, we have to take care of that you spend that as efficient as well. And as these guys show that you save money for all of us by investing in nature, you better do it. So they are now setting up pilots, and hope that will be an example for other parts of the Netherlands as well. Let's see. But we'll be in contact with the deputies here in Limburg as well on this.
Very good. Thank you very much, Wouter. You will be with us all day, so there's plenty of time also to
of course.
talk, later on and in the bus. There's now Fly, of course, for all of you. So you have a break until, please be here a few minutes before 11, if you would. Then we have plenty of time for the rest of the program as well. Thank you. See you later. Welcome back. Yes, it's working. Welcome back. Breaks are always too short. We have a whole afternoon in the bus to talk more. And I forgot to explain to you what fly is, but I think you all know now what a fly is. We have made a small video because, of course, we want to show you what the project was about, a bit more than you've seen so far. So there's a short video with an impression from the 4 regions and what we've all been doing in this wildlife economy project. And afterwards, I will be talking to a few of the people here on stage. Enjoy the video.
We are working together to explore the innovative economic approach in the project wildlife economy. We are all enthusiastic to share with you what we have explored and learned.
Northern Sweden is at the centre of large-scale mining and energy investments. In terms of economy and employment, this is a wonderful thing. But we need to acknowledge the challenge this poses to one of Europe's last wilderness areas and make sure that ecological sustainability and diversity are made core values in this development. This we have failed in the past. Thanks to the Wildlife Economy Project, our management of a wilderness-based world-class fishing arena has taken a leap forward. We can now connect to tourism entrepreneurs and other stakeholders to help develop sustainable businesses based on nature conservation. Businesses that are an important complement to traditional industries.
Vi havde lidt varmt vejr I august. Op mod 25-30 grader, så fisket var lidt svært. Men en aften besluttede en kammerat og jeg så for, at vi ville fiske om aftenen I stedet for. Og han fiskede først, og så kom jeg efter, og jeg havde byttet til lidt tungere flue og lidt tungere line. Og så sad laksen der lige pludselig, og jeg vidste ikke, hvad jeg skulle gøre, men det lykkedes at få den ind. Følelsen af at lande fisken, og min kammerat, der tog den I halen, og vi fik taget et par billeder og sat den ud igen. Det var bare, ja, det var fantastisk. Der vidste jeg bare, det var laks, jeg skulle fiske.
Wild salmon is the crown jewel of our rivers, and their strength and mythology attracts anglers from around the world. With fish counters, individual tags, and digital tools, we are taking the legacy of salmon management into the 21st century. For us in Lapland, wildlife economy means we can now offer a unique experience to guests, while at the same time being in harmony with nature.
The project is important because we need more entrepreneurial ideas that find an economic base in natural landscapes. During the projects, we were able to identify many proactive individuals and businesses that are on the way to a partnership with nature.
Can you give a concrete example of results of this project?
Yes, I can. There is a handbook, and in this handbook there are presented all these actors and their activities, so these actors can feel part of a bigger network in the area. We hope it will lead to further and concrete project applications for the upcoming Interact 6A program, with a focus on nature-based economies, for example, green tourism infrastructure.
The province of Álava is a biodiversity reserve with 28% of its surface area dedicated to species in the Natura 2000 European Ecological Network. The Alavese mountain region was selected for development by Interreg Europe's Wildlife Economy project. Encourage sustainable forms of tourism and ways to visit the region's natural areas with respect, as well as invigorate the region's economy by renewing ecotourism resources. The project's regional action plan for the Alavese mountain region has 2 lines of action: renewing the Basque-Navarre Railway Green Route, recovering and leveraging mining landscapes with natural asphalt. Case studies and results from the project include involvement of the local community to contribute to reclaiming intangible assets and historical memory and reflecting them in the Lucia Mine Museum, which will open to the public in spring-summer 2023. Educational trail of natural asphalts and the ecological landscaping recovery of the degraded natural asphalt mining area. We hope to gear the project mostly toward preserving the region's heritage with this line of work.
Ja, de natuur biedt ons heel veel, hè? Maar voor mij persoonlijk biedt het vooral heel veel inspiratie, rust. Ik kan er echt van genieten. Dus ik ben elke dag in de natuur te vinden en dat maakt het leven gewoon een stuk leuker. We hebben nu samen met een aantal ondernemers gekeken van ja, wat zou je kunnen doen. En nu is het eigenlijk het moment daar dat ondernemers ook echt de stap gaan zetten om activiteiten te ontplooien die gekoppeld zijn en geïnspireerd zijn op die mooie grote natuurgebieden. Er zijn een paar ondernemers die al gestart zijn in de horeca, een aantal boeren die echt hun businessmodel gaan aanpassen en proberen maximaal gebruik te maken van die mooie gebieden. Maar eigenlijk moet de overheid nu eerst zorgen dat die gebieden er zijn. Er moet flink worden geïnvesteerd en vervolgens kunnen die ondernemers hun plannen gaan maken en hun bedrijf opzetten. Het is voor ons heel belangrijk om te laten zien dat natuurgebieden, grote aaneengesloten natuurgebieden, niet alleen belangrijk zijn voor biodiversiteit en voor het klimaat en voor waterberging, voor recreatie, maar dat je er ook gewoon geld aan kunt verdienen, dus dat het ook een economische waarde heeft. Ik hoop dat mensen inzien dat dankzij grote en mooie natuurgebieden ook de economie daarvan baat, dus ook de hele regio waar zo'n gebied in ligt. En dat het dus niet iets is wat geld kost, maar dat het juist iets is wat ontzettend veel oplevert.
I hadn't seen it before, not in its entirety, so I think it's a nice, concise view of what we've been doing together. I'd like to ask a few people to the stage. Mr. Glenn Douglas, Erwin Christis, and Mr. Ulrich Stöcker, of course. And then we have online the people from Álava that could unfortunately not be here. We have Miss Elena. I have to look for. Your first name is okay, but Miss Elena Gomez Chico. and Ms. Sonja Olza. Nice to see you both again. Yeah, you are on the big screen as well. I think it's best to start with the people in Spain and ask you a few questions about the project. And I see Mr. Josu also. Hi. So maybe we saw the beautiful video, but maybe you can tell us a bit in your own words why you wanted to start this project and what you hoped to gain out of it. Why also the partnership? Why the European cooperation?
Hi, thank you, Janine, for the question. Hello to everyone. My name is Sonia, as Janine was saying, and I've been supporting the team in Álava all through the project, which has been really a pleasure. So why is Álava in this project? As we were commenting before, the province of Álava has really a reservoir of biodiversity. 28% of the surface of the province is Natura 2000. And when it comes to Montaña Alavesa, which is the area that was selected to participate in the project, it reaches up to 60%. So let's say nature is there. It's something you cannot skip, you cannot avoid, you cannot ignore, and therefore you have to work with it. So this project was bringing us the possibility to change this perspective on how to look at nature with the people that actually live in all these Natura 2000 areas, which is rural population that has been seeing and noticing how people were leaving the land, were going to the city, they were left alone, but they still had to manage their jobs, their resources. So
Sonia, one moment, because I don't know if the people can understand really well, not really well. I could understand you, so I will, maybe the technical people can do something about the sound, but I will very briefly tell them what you were saying. You said that half of your region is biodiversity, is nature, and this is actually the first time that the province of Álava has been thinking about nature differently. Approaching it from a different angle. Okay, please go on.
Yes, especially the people who live in the land, the people that there's always a conflict because with the people who live in the land and have to get the economical resources out of this land, and the people who want to preserve nature the way it is, and until very recently, it was seen for some people as a barrier for economic development. So, especially in this area with such a big surface of nature 2000 land, it was an opportunity to change the mindset of the people living there. And we have the feeling, we were just now talking, that we did manage. So for us, this was the big success of the project. That now concepts like nature as an asset, as an economical asset, it's really something that is in the mind of the people who have to live in.
Okay, thank you. I will sorry to interrupt you, but you were saying that there has been a history of many conflicts between the people that are living in the region and the nature, for example, the wolves and the bears that are conflicting sometimes with agricultural interests. And you were saying that this has been a chance to show also to local people, and one of the mayors, actually the head of the group of mayors was very closely involved in this project, as I know. This project has been an opportunity to show that there doesn't necessarily have to be a conflict, but that you can approach it in a different way. Thank you. And can you tell us a little bit about what you are going to plan next? What are you taking away from this project? What has the interaction with the other regions brought you that you will take into the future?
Yes. What our plan for the future is to keep on developing these two natural assets that were really valorized through the project, which is the green whale route that will bring tourists who are a bit more concerned and respectful with nature, and also the asphalt mines, which has been also something that is going to be, well, as the video was showing, inaugurated next year, to keep these channels of work with the local population, because these two natural assets are seen as things that belong to them, and they want to keep on working with them. I think, Janine, you were saying when you were here that we have to look to what makes us different. And in this case, this is what is the pride of the people living here. And the idea is to look for more funding through European channels, but also national ones, in order to develop further these two.
Okay, thank you. You were saying that actually the whole philosophy behind the project, well, it's in my words, the whole philosophy behind the project is definitely something you are taking into the future, and it has helped the government to start thinking differently about nature, which is also taken into the politics, and especially because you are also actually developing concrete projects. The mine is one of your big initiatives that will help show people that it's not just a story, but it's actually working in practice. Thank you very much, Sonia and Elena. Well, it's for very different regions in Europe that have been cooperating. So Ulrich, if you look at Spain, is there any resemblance to the Oder Delta?
Not on the first view, I would say, because it's a more mountainous region, but of course Álava is at the coast too, and they have tourism there at the coast, and that's one common thing, that we have mass tourism in Oder Delta at the coast from Easter to October, but there's not yet really economic perspective for the hinterland.
Yeah.
And these examples that Sonia gave, for example, in the video, the development of this old train line and so on, making as a cultural regional hotspot, exploring into nature, that's a very good opportunity and a very good showcase.
So what you are trying to do is show the same in Oder Delta with the nature, the beautiful nature area that is in the hinterland.
Yes, of course. That's our main ambition.
Okay. So I think, Glenn, how about Sweden?
About Sweden?
Yeah, I forgot to introduce all of you. I'm
That's
sorry.
all right.
I'll do that. Mr. Ulrich is the project leader for the Rewilding Oder Delta. You are a representative from. You've been working for the local government, for the national government in the region for a while, and you're now with the Anglers Association. And Erwin Christus is working for the regional landscape Kempen Maas, regionaal landschap Kempen Maasland, and has been involved very closely in the project as well. Glenn, what for you was one of the eye-openers for the project? What have you learned from the examples you've seen from other regions?
Yeah, well, from the regional government perspective, you know, we're a state government organisation, so it's very much a top-down organisation of tradition, and it works quite successfully. But some of the things we did, the resources that the project gave us meant that we could contact the local communities more intensively, the stakeholders, and we found that people that normally contact have a tendency to have a problem when they ring to the government. When we took the time to meet them and to invite them in, we got a lot more ideas on very specific things about how to manage the fisheries at a local level, small problems. We had ideas, but they came with really genuine input. So more bottom up than top down. I know it sounds simple, but that's what that was really good, and that's what the project gave us.
Okay, because you were saying that in Estonia, where you went for a study visit, that was one of the things you saw there. Yeah.
Well, the Estonians, I have to say that they're very ambitious. It's a small country with very few resources, but they're working very hard to restore their salmon populations. And the great thing there was that they just, well, we know salmon is coming back, but they're also looking at other species as well. That was a bit of an eye-opener for us. They were looking at river lamprey, which isn't a big you're not going to make money fishing for river lamprey. But they saw, okay, the salmon are coming back. It gives us a bit more resources. We can also study what's happening with the other species around it that are sort of, and this is from a dam removal project and it was great for us to visit.
Okay.
Really good.
Good. And Erwin, what were the eye openers for you from this project, or were there any?
Well, most importantly was seeing that there are a lot of initiatives being taken throughout Europe, and gathering them or experiencing them, learning from them, was one of the goals of this project. And it's just a matter of translating these experiences or these examples to our own region. You can't compare Limburg with Sweden. They use a helicopter to go to work, we a car. But the idea is behind it. You can translate and you have to adapt them to your region. And I think it's important to show entrepreneurs, they are really down-to-earth people, how you can do things, how you can think differently, because they have a certain mindset and that has to change. And that can be changed more easily by showing them, by giving them examples. I think the results of the project and the examples we saw will help us a lot to convince entrepreneurs to think differently.
You really like the examples on the ground for entrepreneurs.
Yes.
It has to be very. Is there any example in particular that you?
Well,
that you
one
can
that
mention?
is still bugging me that we couldn't visit it because of Corona is in the UK, Nep Castle, because in our region we were focusing on tourism but also on agriculture. And that was an entrepreneur, an agricultural entrepreneur who had to change at a certain time, either stop or change direction, and he chose the second way. And he showed that you can produce food, healthy food, local food, and biodiversity on your lands, and combining this and make a profitable business from it was really inspiring.
Yes, he had very impressive figures
Yes.
to show. Yeah, thank you. Any example in particular, Ulrich, that you want to mention?
Learning from the partners in many relations. Of course, there are also rivers in the delta region of the Oder in Poland and Germany. Salmon is one of our key species, as well as sturgeons. And the tributaries, so the smaller rivers, are very important for us because of the catastrophe. You may have heard of this in this summer, which was man-made in the upper Oder mainly, and not so much in our region. And in general,
the pollution that in Poland of the Oder Delta.
Yeah. And especially one other aspect with Erwin's and your work here of the province of Limburg in Netherlands and Belgium, this transfrontier, this transboundary work is very important, and which is, of course, one key issue for us, which is very difficult, even in Europe, with, I must say, depends from the governments of the states, and for civil society organizations in Poland, it's not easy in the moment. We forget this if we hear about Ukraine and the Russian war and so on, but in some states in the EU, there are also problems, and it's fantastic that we can here have a very good showcase of transboundary work, conservation and economy bring together.
Yes, one of your Polish colleagues joined the study visit to Romania, which I think was a very big added value.
Yeah, that was fantastic for us. It was also in Wouter's presentation that Danube Delta, of course, is fantastic, and we can learn a lot from them, but we also found out that they can learn things from us. So it's
Luckily.
a good base for a partnership. And what was the most spectacular there in our study visit in Danube Delta was the so-called Ultima Frontera, which means last border. It's really on the border to Moldovan Republic and to Ukraine, and it's a paradise for nature photographers. And it's with observation heights, and that is one thing that we will definitely copy from next summer on, by the way, and we have now the first areas where to implement this.
Good to hear. Glenn, you also mentioned Hadrian's Wall as one of the things that have been inspiring you.
Also one of the areas, of course, that we couldn't visit, but that we got the great information. The digital development during this project, of course, was fantastic, if you think about it. And for us, the Hadrian's Wall thing was because, of course, they're very engaged in using retired people as semi-professional guides, and getting them in a much more professional way and sharing information for guests. And I mean, it just increases the experience, because those people have such experience during lifetime that they can, of course, show to guests, and you get much more out of it as a visitor, and it sort of ties the local community more to the nature project itself, because they're involved in it in a more active way, so that's magic. And for us also, it's probably the same for all countries, but when people retire in Sweden, that's basically the end of your working life. But this was a way of really keeping people active and involved in nature. So it was a great example for us, and something that we'd like to be able to use as well, I think.
Yes, I was surprised that volunteering in Sweden is not such a big issue. So I was also surprised, but that's interesting about international projects, I think, that you, in this way, learn a lot about how it works in other places as well.
Yep.
Yeah, thank you. And Erwin, you're working, of course, on tourism, which is a very obvious thing if you're looking at different ways to earn money from nature. But farmers, you already mentioned them, are also very important in this area. What are the situation now is difficult, of course. It's in the Netherlands definitely, but I think also on your side of the border, because of the whole nitrogen discussion, which has actually polarized the debate between nature and farming once again. What are your next steps to take, and are you a bit optimistic about, is it going to work to convince farmers to do more with nature?
Well, we have to see. Of course, we first had Corona as a crisis which hit farmers as well. Yep. Now we have the energy crisis. They're earning more money because of the raised food prices, but they have to pay more money for the fuel. So the discussion at the moment is very difficult, and also because you mentioned the nitrogen crisis in the Netherlands and Belgium, which is polarizing very much. But we want, our opinion is always to stay positive and show good examples in our own country or abroad, and just keep on speaking level with them, and don't force it. And finding the right people that where you notice that they want to change, but don't know how to change, and help them and inspire them.
And you're going to work in a new Intrek project, I understand,
yes.
Most likely.
Yes.
Where you help to.
It's basically based on this project. It's building on the experiences we gathered here in this project. It's focused on sustainable tourism, cross-border tourism, using the examples, but also the methodology we developed with this project that can help entrepreneurs to make their business more sustainable by incorporating the environment, but also other entrepreneurs in their own region, because it's about connection. It's about connecting people with nature, but also connecting people together in their region.
Yeah. There's the report. You've written a report, which with a model on how to work on these things, which is available for everybody. Yes. On the table in the.
So it's not a solution for everything, but it's more or less a manual with a lot of questions. When you follow these questions, you have thought about all the steps to come to a sustainable business model, we hope. And we want to use the new Interreg project to implement this methodology and see how it works, perhaps adapt it or improve it, but at least we have a starting base to start with.
Okay, thank you. Glenn, your examples are mainly about tourism, but there's other sectors as well that can be interesting in the north of Sweden, I think, from a wildlife economy perspective. Can you say a bit more about that?
Of course, we have the local community now, of course, the Sami community, the indigenous people of the north are going to be involved much more in the management of fisheries in the future. And so that's going to be interesting, challenging, and eventually fruitful. It's going to be good for us all to work in a bigger partnership in future with fisheries management, I think, at a regional level. And we're looking forward to that work. It's going to require us meeting each other together in a new way, and making sure that we keep the inclusivity so people can still visit the areas, and but the reindeer management especially will get much better influence in how the resources used around them, and that's important because they're of course challenged in many ways. There's many things that are going on in the north of Sweden with the mining and the forestry and things like that as well. So it's going to be a good and interesting period for us.
Yeah, a huge, vast area.
Yeah, it is. Yeah.
Okay, and Ulrich, I understand that in Germany you have a new, quite ambitious policy at the national level, or a nature policy, or how does, maybe you can tell a little bit about what it is, and how does wildlife economy come in that picture?
Okay. Yeah, you speak mainly about conservation and energy policy. We all have these energy questions and concerns, especially behind the background of the war in Ukraine and so on. And Germany, of course, there's a lot of new energy like offshore wind and so on, but also there's a program, action program for natural climate protection, which is funded with 4 billion euro over the next 3-4 years from the federal government. And there are fantastic synergies to our work. I can come back to that, what Wouter says. Rewilding brings big potentials for carbon storage. And that is one of the things, of course, we are a relevant player in a region where there are a lot of peatlands, a lot of rivers, a lot of forests, even coastal and coastal ecosystems like salt marshes and seagrass meadows in the sea that are relevant for climate protection. So we are one, let's say, one model region for this, and we want to become this and combine it with our rewilding approaches. And one of the main challenges is to talk and to speak and to find solutions with agriculture, with farmers, so that they can change their way of producing, giving more space for nature and enabling rewilding on big parts of the area.
Yeah. Yes, actually then, and rewilding or wildlife economy is maybe preparing the way in the regions to make sure that there's enough support also.
Exactly, yes.
To work on those things we all need.
And people are open-minded regarding this. There have already been, in former years, a lot of conservation initiatives in that region that have failed. But at the moment, there are no conflicts. People are open to talk with us. And it's a good mood. And people recognize, and especially land users, that they have to change because of the challenges. And we give some, as Wouter said, we have some solutions for this.
Yeah, well, thank you very much, three of you. Also, thank you very much. I think also you come with your answer. We're back to Spain again, where actually the same has been happening with concrete examples and working on the ground. You find support for bigger nature ambitions that we should have as a society, as I see it. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
I would now like to invite Mr. Ignas Schops, Director of Regionaal Landschap Kempen-Maasland. You have received a number of very prestigious awards for your work in nature. I even saw that you were one of the 25 most influential Belgian people in the world. So, well, very honored that you are here, and very much looking forward to your contribution.
Thank you for inviting me, and what a beautiful project this was, I think. And maybe I'm going to talk a little bit about the River Meuse, which is over there. Maybe some people have seen flying over these cormorants already, or the black crow with smashing nuts to find this beautiful and good food. Thank you for that, but maybe to take a home message up front. If we have to finance change, we have to change finance. It's a simple message, but I think we have to change the system. And maybe after rewilding the land, we have to now rewild our brains as well, and all of those who make decisions in the world. We are 8 partners in 5 regions. You could say 4 regions because the Netherlands and Flanders and Belgium is at the same region, but we are 8 organizations working together with the same aim to find new solutions, new models for economic development from the countryside, and to exchange knowledge. That's what we intended to do, and I think we were very successful in that. Because I really think, and it's not that it is me that was very very connected with the project, is Erwin and also Katrien, who was leading the field tour in the afternoon. But at least what they told me was that international cooperation works, and that's something we know from nature conservation for a long time, of course, that nature has no borders. We have similar problems, similar challenges, but also similar solutions, and that's something we can share, I think. So I think projects like this is very important to exchange this knowledge, to see what the opportunities are, what the new models could be, and try to translate them into our own regions. I'm going to talk about the Meuse Valley, the river Meuse, but of course we were two regions with our organization, the Regional Landscape Kempen en Maasland, in this project with the border park Kempenbroek, which is a fantastic place to be. And also in the afternoon you go for an excursion over there with, also beautiful scenery, but a high level of biodiversity. The white storks are breeding there. Even the wolf that came into Belgium recently came through Kempenbroek into Belgium, and the reintroduction of the red deer. So also it's a very beautiful region, also with a lot of work that we did together with all our partners, of which Rewilding Europe, Ark Natuurontwikkeling, and Natuurmonumenten, and so on. So we are working closely together to find these new ways and to show that the hinterland becomes upfront, that there is no frontland without an hinterland. We are all in this together, and we come to senses more and more, I think, now to put that into our mindsets. In this Kempenbroek region, we are working very much together with a lot of partners, like we said, and also we are now going forward to become a man and biosphere reserve, a cross-border man and biosphere reserve together with the Netherlands. And like Erwin already said in the panel, we had, due to this project, some interesting manuals or methodologies made by the Breda University to see what can be the tools and methodologies for economic development based on wildlife. So a little bit more about the river park, Meuse Valley, which is over there, but you will find out later on. It's the river Meuse is in the spring of the river Meuse is in the Plateau de Langres in France, and then goes through Belgium into the North Sea in the Netherlands. In this river park, which we established, it's just 47 kilometers of a free-running cross-border river. It is free running. At other places there between dikes where the river doesn't have any places, and I will tell you more about that. 53,000 people are living at the river banks. 2 countries, 2 provinces, 11 municipalities are involved, and more than 30 partners from several origin, from nature, from water management, from farmers, hunters, and so on, and of course entrepreneurs. And this river Maas, like so many other places, is the natural GPS. They use the river Maas to migrate to maybe the south or backwards at another in spring. So the river Maas, without knowing, is our compass. And I think now we come to senses and it becomes clear that we have to use the compass of nature for ourselves as well, because we are nature, we are a species as well. And how important this river Maas, this river Meuse, is for the local communities, we can show very easily by the value of its drinking water. 5 billion liters of water are taken every year from the river Maas for drinking water for 7 million people in Belgium and the Netherlands. So it's crucial that the river Maas is also a river that provides clear water. But of course it was said by Wouter already that we had big floodings in 1993 and 95. And also last year, it was a huge flooding with more than 200 people dying in Belgium, the Netherlands, and Germany, with a huge cost, of course, to solve this problem of flooding. And we saw these images for the first time in my country, in Belgium, which was only in the newspapers from faraway countries beforehand. But now we were really hit by this flooding and this huge, I think, people called it a natural disaster, but I think they are wrong. This is a climate disaster. This is not forced by nature. This is influenced by human beings who are responsible for climate change that created this kind of problem that is happening every day at another place. But looking to the beauty, and that's what people did 30 years ago, even a little bit more further away than 30 years ago, we saw the beauty, and we saw if we give space to nature, if we give space to these wild rivers, something beautiful can happen as well. Because we can look differently to these beautiful areas. It could be in Spain or in Sweden or in the other delta in Germany, where we see that with different eyes to our landscaping, we see that it is not only nature, but it's also the place where we live, where we have our cleaning water, drinking water, where we have agriculture, where this is our health, these are our medicine for our health. I refer to Corona, of course, COVID, which was very decisive on how we felt about wildlife as well. And so even 30 years ago, they created, because of the floodings, a big plan over here for flood prevention, and with that also the ecosystem restoration. So at the two riverbanks, they are excavating and they did gravel extraction, making new nature and giving space to this river, where you see that you create something beautiful. And the good thing, and related to the project, of course, this was an economical way of trying to rewild this river, because a lot of gravel was extracted. It was also in an economic process, but we made new nature. We rewild the region with a beautiful result, and I come back to that. We, as an organization, the Regional Landscape Camp in Maasland, we then started to have that idea of a river park, where we thought, okay, the flood and drought prevention, because now we have the problem of drought as well, nature development and nature restoration, gravel extraction as an economic tool, but also sustainable tourism and raising awareness where people comes into the part of the game, because value is in the eye of the beholder. We give value. It's not a wolf or a cormorant that says, I'm important, and flying to the Belgian government and say, I'm important. No, it's we. People say that. So we have to involve people to raise awareness with a model which is called the reconnection model, where we try to reconnect nature with nature, people with nature, business with nature, and policy with practice. And that is, of course, also the story about rewilding. And so how to involve people, and that's important also for this economical approach of the project that we do. The World Trend Watchers, they came to a conclusion that if you want to become successful in the future, you have to become latte-proof. And everybody knows latte of the latte macchiato, of course, of the coffee, but latte is an acronym of local, authentic, traceable, trustworthy, and ethical. And if we think about nature conservation, about rewilding, about how important wildlife can be for human beings, and you say, wow, yes, we have to be latte-proof. This is exactly what we want to do. We have the culture of our own, which is differently in other parts of the world, but we can use that as a tool, as an asset for economic development as well. And that's where we came with this new design, where you see not only the river is included in the drawings, but also the houses, the people, how to connect people again, because they were orientated to the motorways and not oriented to their back gardens, to the beautiful scenery of wildlife. So that's where we came in and say, okay, let's work on that, to bring people into nature, to explain, to inform them what it's all about. With, of course, these beautiful horses, where this brings so much value to people when they see horses grazing together in hurdles like this. But also when you, and that's good, of course, when we found out drones. Putin is dropping bombs with that, but it's also beautiful to make beautiful scenery, pictures, of course, where you see that it is fantastically done, and you see what this river mass can bring to the community. With, again, still gravel extraction, we are still making new nature with gravel extraction today as well. And restoration will follow, the biodiversity will follow, rewilding will follow if you do some good things about that. And what we can show, and that's the beautiful thing, of course, that is that we doubled the nature destinations in this river mass, in these 47 kilometers. We doubled the nature destinations and we tripled biodiversity. So it is possible to reverse the situation from downsizing to upgrading and to bring that into a report as well. We did a survey together with the tourism organization in Flanders, and the conclusion at both riverbanks, so in the Netherlands and in Belgium, good things here. They would like to have better and more, remain as a tourist destination, but based on the nature experience, quality over quantity, added value and tailor work. It can be differently done, but they want quality, that's what the people say, and the experience, the beauty of the Meuse. We do it because it is beautiful, because of the intrinsic values. 90% of the general public was supporting nature protection. They want to have, they saw that the river is the most characteristic value of what they have, support for sustainable tourism and development, and you see they want to involve themselves as well. We are building now new visitor centers. It's opened recently last month for people to come in to explain in how important biodiversity and rewilding is in the future. And you can go camping on the water as well in these flooding tents. The other good thing, and related to economy, is to bring in art, because art talks about intrinsic values as well. Like health is important, but also art, because it's something intrinsic. We tell the story about art. And that's what we do now in the coming 3 years, where we invite international artists to put some art in this river valley to then create awareness for people how important it is. Save our souls is in this, I think, in this way, very important message for how we think about biodiversity, climate change, and so on and so forth. What we see through working with nature, to working with the beautiful heritage and landscape, is that the hiking numbers are really much increasing from 200,000 in 2018 to 306,000 in 2021. So it brings golden eggs on one condition. And that's when we also start and stay, when we keep on, where we keep on feeding the chicken, of course, because otherwise they cannot lay eggs. The economic value between 1999 and 2017 was calculated on 19 to 24 million euros on the restoration, what we did in the past years, which was incredibly good. And also about carbon storage. It's calculated based on the carbon pricing of today. It's 2 million euros a year that the carbon that is stored in the river, in this river park, and this is what 5,000 families consume. The hiking and cycling in the river parks brings a lot of money and a lot of people over here. 1 million people are visiting this area, which is nowadays good for a turnover of 25 million euros in this region, which stays in the regions with local entrepreneurs, with bed and breakfast, with pubs, and so on and so forth. And we see now also that a lot of entrepreneurs look not to the motorway, but look to this beautiful river to make their businesses as well. So it's a simple choice where we have to do. It's a simple thing to do, and we have to shift from ego to ego. We are part of nature. We are nature. We are a species as well. And so we have to go also in our economical thinking, going from linear to regenerative, where the economy of the future gives more back than it takes from nature. That's where we have to put our goals for the future. What we see, because I was president for Europark Federation for the last 7 years, we see that where we do that across Europe, you see that there's a positive effect for species, for ecosystems, for people and for society. And the return on investment is 1/10. So €1 invested in nature brings €10 for the local economy. It's the best banking company in the world. I'm nearly done. If you talk about biodiversity and wildlife, it's not only about the birds and the bees. It's about our health, it's about our food, it's about our drinking water. So biodiversity is more than just that. So it's everything. It's the reason why we are here. So if you know now that 50% of the GDP and 80% of the poor countries depend on the natural capital, what are we doing in fact? Are we destroying where we can also bring a beautiful alternative? We have to keep in mind that natural ecosystems are a sponge. They keep the water and give it slowly back to the nature. They are the fridge. Think that it is cooler in regions where a lot of nature is there, so the global warming is less, and it is our health system. I wrote a book on this in Dutch. It's called Saved by the Tree Frog. Normally it will be in English next year. And it's completely interesting because I call for the Universal Declaration on the Dependency of Nature, which also is now supported by Jane Goodall. And this is my last slide. It's about love. It's about love because we love nature, we love the beauty of nature, so we cannot destroy what keeps us alive. Think globally, act locally, and change personally. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much for your very inspiring contribution. And I don't think anybody minds that we will eat for 10 minutes later after. I couldn't interrupt you, really. Thank you very much. I will, however, now go to...
sure.
You will stay with us this
No,
afternoon?
I have to go to the Flemish government because there is a big conference there about living landscapes.
Mm-hmm.
So I need to be there, so I have to leave. But my colleagues are here the entire day. So never give up, think big, and we will change the world.
Thank you very much, Ignas. For your... I would like to give the floor to Mr. Etienne Rodzinka Verhelle. You have a beautiful name, also intriguing because it seems to have different countries in it. And you are from the Interreg Secretariat, from the Interreg Europe program. And you would like to tell us a bit more about, I think, about the new program, but maybe also about the results of what this program has delivered. So the floor is yours.
Thank you, Janine. I'm not so sure that my presentation will be as inspiring as the one of Ignas, but I'll do my best. Just as an introduction, what I heard this morning was really music to my ears as a funding organization. This kind of twofold approach, having to keep biodiversity and nature as a cross-cutting approach, but also apply it very concretely to different projects. The cross-border approach that is so relevant when you deal about delta management or river restoration, the focus on local communities as well, and the reconnection to nature. I think that's all very interesting discussion that you had as project partners and stakeholders for the past years, and that's really something that I enjoyed watching this morning and hopefully see concrete examples as well this afternoon. Just a quick presentation. I will try to more or less keep on time. I understand it's important. 3 main things that I would like to present you today. First, kind of general words about what Interreg Europe is about, for those in the room that might not yet know what it is about. Then a quick focus on what you've been doing at the project scale on the eye of the program. And then a few words as well on what's next and how this kind of cooperation that is started in this project can perhaps continue in other forms in the next programming period. First of Interreg Europe. So 4 calls, a lot of money invested in this different project, 322 million, invested in 258 projects for the whole last programming period that is about to end. But what is really interesting is that what we achieved, or what you achieved as projects for these past years. it's more than 5,000 good practices that were discussed at project level. So identified things coming from different regions and shared with other regions all over Europe, some knowledge that was sometimes kept a bit apart and that now can be shared. 925 policy changes. So again, thanks to all this discussion, all these study visits and workshops that you had, as well, leading directly to things happening at the policy level, new projects, new structural funds reoriented towards what actually matters for regions, for local authorities, and for the different stakeholders. Ignace was talking about this 1 to 10 ratio, like you invest €1 in nature and you get 10 euros back. Well, we cannot promise as much, but we can say a 1 to 5 ratio, meaning that when we invested €1 in a project, it led to €5 being better redistributed and better focused on what really mattered for regions in Europe. Few words about what you've been doing, but a lot have already been said, and again, we will see these concrete examples this afternoon. So on all these 258 projects that we've been funding for the past years, there's 67, so it's very distributed again along the 4 priorities that we had. 67 that were focusing on environment and resource efficiency, like this project. And 36 projects very specifically on this cooperation in natural and cultural heritage. So you can see that it involved a lot of regions all over Europe, a lot in the south actually, and in the borders of the continent, but not so much in the center. And on this very specific issue of ecosystem services, let's say, or wildlife economy, few projects actually have been specifically taking this angle. There's your project and 2 others that also tried to improve the governance of ecosystem management and always try to keep this idea of how to make sure that community participates when they are sure that they will get a return as well on investment, kind of. So all the time and the money they spend in it, they will see actually the interest for them to participate in this kind of wildlife restoration or nature preservation. The strengths of this project that we see now on our side as a program is that, and it's a proof today, and what Wouter has been saying as well, it's that this topic is so relevant for so many regions in Europe, and so many regions are now more and more interested into working in this direction and try to find new solutions, and I'm pretty sure that what you've been discussing in this project will interest as well more and more regions all over Europe that will be interested to know what you've been discussing about and what you found out. Another thing is this focus on cross-border programs that is not so frequent in Interreg projects, but I think it's so much relevant again here when we talk about the Oder Delta, for example, of course, having the German side, but also through stakeholders, the Polish side kind of involved as well, makes sense. And of course, for the Meuse River here, to have both the Dutch side and the Belgian side makes, of course, total sense when you talk about river restoration. For the achievements so far, we are also very happy to see that these skills improved because you participated in the project, because some of your colleagues as well, some of the local stakeholders. So again, that this knowledge is not staying only inside the project, but really sharing in the different organizations. We are also happy when projects can be showcased or presented in different program or policy learning events or activities. And so here, the fact that WLE was, well, we're talking about the wild salmon, we saw it in the video a bit earlier. That's also something that the experts of the policy learning platform spotted as especially interesting. As spreading knowledge for policymakers in Europe. Few words now about the next programming period, so 2021-2027, and how the program will look like, because it will continue. So we will have a higher budget, 379 million euros. And now it's going to be a bit simple, more simple than it used to be. We just have one single priority, which is capacity building, and covers all objectives of the cohesion policy. So we have 29 countries involved, well, minus the UK, so all remaining countries plus, so 27 EU members plus Switzerland and Norway. And as I said, there's only one objective now. It's going to be primarily still dedicated to policymakers, with still a focus on the exchange of experience, so different from other cross-border Interreg programs. And as I said, all 6 topics will be covered, even though we foresee a concentration on some specific topics that have been highly interesting for projects in the past programming period. So on Europe Smarter, Greener Europe, and More Social Europe. So we think that at the end of the day, 80% of the funding we have will be directed towards these 3 priorities. We have 2 actions, 2 pillars that remain the same. So yes, projects, WLE is one example of them. So again, regions, policymakers exchanging between them, and with a hope to improve the policy instruments at the regional, local, national levels. And also the support that our experts from the Policy Learning Platform are providing either to project partners, but also to organizations that are not members of any project. And here in a nutshell, that's always interesting to know that it's still something that is easily accessible, easier to access than a project where you have to fill in the whole proposal and so on. Here, there's easily accessible knowledge with policy briefs, with different articles. There's a community of organizations all over Europe that you can connect with to start new projects or to discuss new ideas, and also expert support, for example, on peer reviews. So you can ask to have the help of experts and experts from all over Europe to help you solve a very concrete issue that you face at the regional or at the local level. For the projects, so for the calls and the next time that we will open the calls, so we just closed one in May. We are currently assessing the different proposals. As you can see on the graph, it's more or less following what we were foreseeing, a lot on smart, a lot on green, and on social. So we received 134 project proposals, and the next one, so the second call for this programming period, will be open early next year from the 15th of March till the 9th of June. And we will have actually online networking events, most of them in November, a bit at the beginning of December, to start to discuss a bit more and to present you with experts from the Commission what are these new priorities, what are these new topics, how your ideas as well can fit in, and as it said, networking, also to start discussing a bit more concretely the proposal you may have with potential partners all over Europe. The call will be officially launched on the 15th of March in Stockholm during our annual event, Europe Let's Cooperate. In the meantime, you still can benefit from assistance from our site. You can discuss with the community members on our website and share a proposal and get inspired by what others are suggesting. And as soon as a call will open, you can also benefit from the ask for feedback, so meaning that you send your proposal and we at the Joint Secretariat give you a kind of feedback, formal feedback on if this idea fits or not. And then, of course, you can apply for the call, so before the 9th of June. That's all from my side. I hope I kept the time. And, of course, I'm available during the day if you have any concrete questions on the opportunity that Interreg Europe provides.
Thank you very much. It's very concise and also very focused presentation, I think. Thank you very much for that. Of course, we're also very grateful for the opportunity we've all had to do this project in the previous program, so thank you for that as well. If there are any questions, but you will be with us this afternoon as well, so there will be time in the bus also and outside the bus to ask questions. Is there anybody who wants to ask something now? Okay, no, then we just thank you. Thank you very much. I have a few household announcements to make. And I will give the floor to you, maybe before or afterwards. First the household. I want to start with this one. If you want to go to the toilet, please go now, because there's only, the next opportunity will be at 3:30. There are cards for those who come by car. You have to take an uitrijkaart, which is on the small table, don't forget. And there's some reports there as well, so please take what you think is interesting from the little table. And then after I've given the floor to Raymond, we would like to take a picture of everybody here. So I would like to invite you all to the stage after I've invited Raymond to the stage. Raymond is the project leader for this project. And I think we all need to give him a big round of applause for all the work he's been doing. The past 4 years.
Thank you, but this wouldn't be possible without the help of all of you. So I think we have a good result, although we are not at the end yet. So we have to go on until February. But when I look at the presentations and also the efforts with the IRPs, they look really, really good. And as all, thank to you. So also an applause for yourself.
Why not? Let's do that.
Well, Ignacy had to go, so I already offered him these original projects. I also want to ask the people who give the presentations, so Etienne and Walter, to come forward. So I have only 2 hands, so that's the first one. So I get the other one. Yes. Geef me van ding omhoog. Yes. Okay. Yes.
Sustainable regional produce.
Yes, they're from these regions. So
thank you.
Thank you. Again, an applause for their presentations. Okay, and the last one, it's not from me, but it's for you, because we're a wonderful chairwoman, we say. And thank you, Janine, for this excellent presentation and
thank you.
Everything you organized. Thank you very much.
Nice. Okay, let's have everybody on stage for the photo. Leuk. Kijk. Flesje Lindebo. Helemaal goed. Dat is zeker goed bier. Ja. Zal ik deze even... Ja, nou, dat drinken we niet meer. Oh. De boel afbreken. Zal ik deze even naar achteren zetten?